Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to Hump Day Hangouts, episode 326. Today is the 10th of February, 2021. I was about to say, if you're watching live and you can't see this, refresh the page, but that wouldn't really do you much good if you're watching live and can't see this. So if you're ever watching live and you can't see it, just make sure that you refresh the page. Sometimes it takes a little bit for the page to get updated. So as usual, we're going to go through. We got some announcements. We'll keep that short, and then we're going to get in. We got a bunch of questions of pretty good wide variety. So we will start. We got, I know Marco's out taking some time with the family. Hernan must have gotten held up somewhere, but the rest of us are here and ready to go. So we'll start off with Chris. How you doing today?
Doing good here. Super happy here today. Lots of new snow. So like everything's white, everything is more bright and stuff. So I really enjoy that.
Very nice. Nice. All right. And Bradley, are you ready, available for comments?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to get logged into stuff, but yeah.
Gotcha. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it. I got a couple things I want to go over before we start answering questions. First of all, if you're new to Semantic Mastery, thanks for watching. You're in the right place. Every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out either live on semanticmastery.com/HD questions, or you can subscribe on the YouTube channel and stay up to date that way. And check out the replay. We also put out little clips of the questions. But the best way to do it is to come live, or if you can't make it live, you can ask your questions ahead of time at semanticmastery.com/HD questions, and then check out the replay, because we understand you either got things to do, got a job, got clients, whatever. Last but not least, I wanted to name a few things that we get asked a lot, and to kind of talk on that real quick. If you are new to Semantic Mastery, you're new to mgyb, you're new to Heavy Hitters Club, then you should find out how to shield your site. I'm using the air quotes here because the shield comes up a lot, right? But this is if you don't want to worry about algorithm updates and you want to find out what the hell the SEO Shield is, go over to the SEOshield.com. That's the word, the SEOshield.com. And then beyond that, if you want to expand beyond that and get our step-by-step processes for getting SEO results, then check out the battle plan. And you can find out more about that at battleplan.semanticmastery.com. Kind of moving up the list, what we also get asked a lot is, hey, I'm either a consultant or I've got a small agency, but I want to get more clients. I want to grow my revenue. I want to scale my team. I know I fit into that category. I think a lot of other people do. But if you want to find out more about that, there's great training available at 2xyouragency.com. And then if you're ready to grow your digital marketing business, or you even have a brick and mortar physical business, you've got people working for you, or you're more experienced with the agency or consulting model, then the mastermind is definitely the place for you. And you can find out more about that at mastermind.semanticmastery.com. And last, but certainly not least, I've mentioned this before, mgyb.co. That's a place to get done for you services. All right. I recently, this is the stuff we've used ourselves, and we do use ourselves. I recently bought the deep keyword research package for a new project I'm working on. I love that. It saves a ton of time. You get a bunch of not only just great keywords, but it's also organized very well. You can find out more about that at mgyb.co. And beyond that, you can get the SEO Shield, syndication networks, press releases, link building, all sorts of good stuff. So before we jump into it, just going to say hi to Hernan. Looks like he made it here. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Sorry about the slight delay. I was in a meeting that ran late. It was supposed to be 5 minutes, but it ended up being 7. So
anyways, that's all right. You're going to get detention, but
I hate that, man. I hate that. So anyways, happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's about it. Let's get into it, unless anybody else has
I think we got one more thing.
What's up, man?
Especially for all our full paying mastermind members. So for the next 2 weeks, if you're struggling with your Facebook conversions API, I will help you for free, but only for the next weeks, and no trial subscribers. So like, you need to be a full subscribed mastermind member. Adam will post a link where you can subscribe to the mastermind. And if you're struggling or need help with that, just hit me up in the Facebook group, the Semantic Mastermind Facebook group. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Hell of a deal.
Definitely.
All right, guys, let's get into it. Bradley, you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good now. Let me grab the screen. I'm still fighting through. I got a new PC last week, and boy, and I remember why over 6 years. I kept my old one for 6 years because it's a nightmare transferring everything from one PC to another. It just takes forever. It's been a week and I'm still not done.
So I got a question for you, Bradley, and hopefully some other people can relate. And I know the answer like from Hernan, because I know he plays PC games. And so I bet, he nerds out on like putting together his PC or like getting a new one. Do you do that too, Bradley? Or has it always just been like a work machine for you? And it's just like,
work.
Okay. So like I transitioned because I used to like nerd out, on like researching and doing all this and building my own PC. And now I am like dreading upgrading because I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with like having to like download programs and do this. And I never understood people who were like that before. And now that's to me like one of those things I'm like, shit, I'm getting old. I no longer enjoy that.
Well, I used this program it's a company called Laplink. It's called PC Mover. And I used the professional version, which is like $60 or something like that. But it was great. It was overnight. It transferred everything from one PC to the other, all programs and everything, but you still got to log back into the programs and then kind of like reset them or re-register them and all that kind of stuff. So, and then obviously some of the settings aren't all the same, but it definitely helped. Before I've always done that shit manually, and it would literally take days of doing nothing but working on the PC, like the transfer stuff. And this made everything a lot easier, but it's still, I'm still going in and having to modify things. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's cool. What was that called again?
It's called PC Mover by Laplink.
Awesome. I'm going to write it down.
And it's pretty cool. It saved me a ton of time. I let it transfer overnight, and it took about 6 hours for it to transfer everything from one to another. But once it was done, like I said, it definitely sped up the process. Still working my way through some bugs, but it was definitely a lot easier. So
what rockets did you get? Like, that's the curious question on everybody's mind.
The what?
What kind of rocket computer did you get?
Well, I got a good one with 64 megabytes RAM because that was my biggest issue. I use Browsio still, God forbid. And when I got a shit ton of Chrome profiles open, it slows my computer way down. I went from 32 gigabytes RAM to 64, and it's definitely better. It's faster. There's no question. So.
I got a recommendation for you. They're right there.
What's that?
Use a fucking VPS, man.
No, it's okay.
Offload the whole thing of like 500 open tabs off the VPS.
I just bought a new PC, so I don't need to do that shit. So
you can even do this like a weak Chromebook and run that operation. It's
I understand,
it's crazy.
but I don't need that shit.
And moving into questions.
Here we go. All right, guys, we're gonna get into it now. We're gonna start with Chaz.
Did you see that GIF? Anyways, maybe we'll get to it. Keep going.
Which one?
Never mind. Just keep going.
I don't see it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, moving on. Chaz says, hey guys, well, hold on. It looks like I don't remember answering this one last week, so we'll go with this one. If a company has a Wikipedia page or something similar like Crunchbase, is it a good idea to include it as a link in things schema using something like SEO Ultimate for the name of the brand and variations of the brand to help with branded SERPs, or is this a stupid idea and better to just put in SameAs schema? Yeah, I mean, I don't fully understand the question or what you're attempting to do. So if you want to clarify that, I'll try to give you a better answer. But honestly, just put it in the SameAs schema. That's SameAs schemas. Actually, it's for your primary social accounts. However, we have for years now, we've been listing all of what we feel are the most powerful properties that are, branded profiles for a project, a brand, a company. And so I'll use what I consider to be the most powerful citations, so to speak, or places where I have a profile. So it'll be the main social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, or excuse me, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram if you have it. I typically don't use Instagram, but so the main social media accounts, and then like the Google site, GMB website. If you have a GMB, the GMB map URL, you can also use the has map designation in schema for that also, but I also put that in SameAs. The Google site, if you got an SEO Shield, which you should, Press Advantage organization page, part of the SEO Shield, right? And then also I'll put in top level citations if it's for local. I've talked about how to do this many times, but typically what I'll do is just go to Google and search for the company name plus the phone number. And then whatever listings or citations show up, or any sort of profiles, period, that show up in the top 2 pages of Google search results for that brand plus phone number. By the way, if the top 2 pages are filled up with a lot of pages from the company domain, right, from that entity's domain, then you could always put in a modifier like minus then the domain name, right, the domain itself. So, you know, mydomain.com. So the minus sign, then mydomain.com, and it will strip those from the results that it shows. So again, I'll do like a search for the brand name plus phone number, and then I'll do the minus domain.com as part of it. And then whatever shows up on those top 2 pages, I'll just put those in my SameAs, click through and make sure that they're relevant. You know, if there's not really any data on the page, then it's unnecessary to put it in SameAs schema. But if it's got name, address, and phone number listed, and preferably with the link back to the site, then I will put that back in, or I'll put that in the SameAs schema. So again, top level social media, the top syndication network profiles, not all of them, but I put the top ones in, like Blogger, Tumblr, WordPress, for example. About.me is another good one. Press Advantage, Google site, GMB website, GMB map share URL, or preferably the CID equals URL, not the share URL. And then the top 2 pages of citations, or when I say citations, I don't just mean structured citations like business directories. I mean anything that Google determines in the top 2 pages for that type of a search. Why I just do the top 2 pages, because those are the ones that Google thinks are the most important or the most authoritative, that are referencing your project site, right? The brand itself. So that's why I just stick with those. I don't spam it to death. I know some people that will put everything that they ever create for their brand in SameAs, and it's like super long. And I don't think that hurts it. But I just think that's overkill, and there's some sort of diminishing return there. So like I said, I just stick with the top level ones, and that's basically it, and typically get really good results. And that can all be done with SameAs schema. I wouldn't attempt any of these other things well, first of all, I'm not 100% sure what you were asking, but you run the risk of ambiguating the entity if you start messing with it. So that's why SameAs is a particular designation that works well for that kind of thing. Any comments on that, guys? I know it's probably going to be mostly me today.
Nothing on my end.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right, moving on. So Chaz says, hey guys, I'm looking to purchase a done for you SEO Power Shield. I noticed that with RYS Reloaded package, there's a Twitter SEO profile add-on option. Since the SEO Power Shield includes an RYS stack, is the Twitter SEO profile included? And if not, how do I go about adding that before or during checkout? Last thing, fuck Google. That's funny. Marco would be proud, Chaz. That's a really good question. Honestly, I don't typically use the Twitter SEO add-on, and it's just because I don't really like Twitter. I know it's good for SEO and all that. I've never been a fan of Twitter, so it's just something I don't use. If it's something that you want to add to an SEO Power Shield, since that it does not come with it, okay? If you're ordering just a Drive stack, then you can have that as an add-on, right? Or you can buy that package with the Twitter SEO. And the SEO Power Shield, because it's not something that people commonly purchase, the Twitter SEO network, then we don't include that in the SEO Power Shield, because again, those are like the bundled services which people mostly purchase, right? So that's the SEO Shield packages are bundles that are the most commonly purchased bundles, so to speak. So if you want that add-on, I would just contact support and ask how they want to handle that, because I don't think we have that's kind of just a customization, but I'm sure that support will accommodate you. Just contact support at mgyb.co and tell them what you're trying to do, and they'll get you sorted, I'm sure. Okay, next question is from Pierce. He says, hey guys, looking to build out some online tools for my web hosting business, like an online whois checker, etc., which will create new domains with info about different domains. Okay. Would doing this inadvertently benefit my competitors, as their domains may get crawled and listed on the whois tool? Won't there be any links going to the domains, just information like brand name, image of homepage, and whois registration? I don't fully understand that question. Does anybody else? You guys probably weren't even paying attention, were you? I don't fully understand this question, so we try one more time. Hey guys, looking to build out some online tools for my web hosting business, like an online whois checker, which will create new domains with info about different domains. I don't understand the point of that.
Just wondering if that's like, sorry, I don't know the right terminology for this, but like you're creating pages on the fly, like as people query it, you're like, hey, let's find out about this page. And then it builds a page with the information that, you know, it like builds it on the fly maybe, but probably not a different domain. I mean, it could be a subdomain, but it'd probably be a page, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't fully understand the question. I don't understand what creating new domains with info about different domains means.
Well, let's assume he's talking about subdomains. So like every time someone does a query, they go to his site, they go to domain.com and say, hey, tell me about semantic mastery. And it digs some information on semantic mastery and it creates a page called semanticmastery.hisdomain.com and it shows some information about it. And just as of right then, that page is created on the fly and the domain exists.
As their domains may get crawled and listed on yeah, okay. If that's what you're, and that was a great interpretation, Adam, because that may very well be what he's trying to do, and I'm just going to assume that that is the case for now. Maybe there's some clarification down further. No. All right, well, I'm going to run with what Adam's interpretation of that question was. If that were the case, then, you know, that's a good question. I don't 100% know. If you're not linking back to the competitor domain, then most likely not. I mean, it's still considered a citation, right? If you're listing information about the brand, the domain itself, right? Then it could be considered a citation, which would be, you know, remember, a citation doesn't have to include a link. It's just the publishing of entity information, typically name, address, and phone number, right? NAP. Sometimes with a link, sometimes without, but just publishing that, even if it's not hyperlinked, it's not clickable, none of that, can count as a citation. That's more beneficial for local projects than it is for like national or global or whatever. But it still is it can help with SEO, but since if there's no link whatsoever, it's likely that it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't move the needle any, is what I'm saying, for your competitors. So I don't think that would be a problem. And again, that's just me assuming that is what you're trying to do, is create like a subdomain page anytime somebody does a query, because I don't really fully understand the question. So anyway, that said, hopefully that answers your question. I don't think it would be an issue if it's just listing like text-based data about that domain. But again, still not 100% sure why you would want to do that. So anyway, Landry says, Landry, I think I got it right this time, man. Landry, right? I think so. Anyways, if I need to do a keyword for divorce lawyers, for divorce lawyers, do I need to submit for keyword research for lawyers or divorce lawyers? Okay, so if you're going to order a keyword research package, I'm assuming that's what you're asking. If you're going to order a keyword search package from mgyb for divorce lawyers, do I submit for keyword research for lawyers or for divorce lawyers? Well, if you're going specifically after divorce lawyers, then if you were to just submit lawyers as your keyword, then it's going to pull back divorce lawyers and personal injury attorneys and family law and, you know, criminal attorneys, and it's going to pull all that back, which would be not relevant to your project, right? So if your project is all about divorce lawyers, then I would use divorce lawyers or attorneys, you know, they're kind of interchangeable, as your keyword. And then they'll start pulling it from there and extracting all of the keyword, you know, subsets or sub themes from divorce lawyers, and kind of compiling and optimizing the keyword file for you that way. If it's the you know, the top, whatever the top level keyword package is. So that's what I would suggest, because remember, if you're going with the broader term, you're going to get broader results too, which aren't going to be relevant to your project, excuse me. So I would go with divorce lawyers. Okay. Don't include any local modifiers though. We don't need that for the deep keyword research. If I submit for deep keyword research for lawyers, will I be able to select various areas of law to build my site, or will I have to build a law site that covers various? Will I be able to select various areas of law to build my site, or will I have to build a law site that covers various areas of law? Okay. All right. Will I be able to select various areas of law to build my site? Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you go with the lawyers, like for DWORK, if you just went with lawyers, right, which is very broad, then it's going to return everything. And there will be suggested silos and all that, which then, you know, you can determine whether you want to use them or not. It's up to your what your project is about. Because if you go with lawyers, there's going to be all kinds of environmental law, immigration lawyers. There's going to be all kinds of stuff in there that is probably not going to be relevant to your, I mean, again, I don't know what you mentioned in the previous question, divorce lawyers. So I'm assuming that you want to be optimized more for that, more specialized, right? So I would go with just divorce lawyers. But again, if you want to do a more general type of law website that covers multiple subcategories for attorneys or lawyers, then you want to go with the broader term. Does that make sense? And then you can just select which, you know, silos or suggested silos that you want to use. And again, they're suggested. You still have to go through and, you know, stack the content or the keywords the way that you want them to be. We do our best to give you, you know, things in keyword groups or keyword themes, which would be suggested silos essentially. But it's still up to you to go through and actually, you know, choose which ones of those keywords are fully relevant to your project and to select which ones you're going to create content for or optimize content for. If that makes sense. Okay. All right, moving on. Hopefully that answered that question. It was a little bit of a difficult question, I guess. Christopher says, hey, SM crew, when it comes to pushing power behind links, is it a wise idea to point tier 2 links from mgyb or other sources to bit.ly linking back to the money site, or is it better to direct somewhere else? Okay, Christopher, that's a good question, but there's a few things that I would recommend. So tier 2 links from mgyb or other sources to bit.ly. Okay, bit.ly, I don't recommend using bit.ly for shortening links to your money sites and stuff, because this has been a known issue with bit.ly. Now, it may have changed. It may be updated and they don't do this anymore. I don't know. I just know from years ago, I'm talking like, you know, 6-7 years ago, bit.ly was infamous for, they're supposed to be 301 redirect URLs, shorteners, right? Which creates a 301 redirect. But for whatever reason, and there was no like rhyme or reason behind it, bit.ly will sometimes convert some bit.ly redirects to 302s, right? Which is it doesn't allow PageRank to pass. And if that's the case, then building links to bit.ly shortened URLs that have been tagged as 302, have been converted to 302 redirects, then you lose all of any potential benefit from the link building to that short link is completely lost at that point. So we have for years and years, we stopped using bit.ly for short URLs, other than like when you're using them for SEO purposes. I use bit.ly all the time in like internal documents and things like that, because it's not SEO related, right? But when I'm creating redirects for SEO purposes, I don't like to use bit.ly because of that very reason. There's sometimes you'll look at bit.ly links through like a redirect checker and it'll be a 301. Other times you'll look at bit.ly links and they'll be 302s. And bit.ly just does that on their own. At least they used to. Again, it's been many years since I've really tested any of that, because I just stopped using bit.ly years ago because of that reason. So I don't know if that's still the case or not, but I know that at some point they were doing that. And so it made bit.ly not a good tool for SEO purposes. That said, remember, mgyb has a link shortener, right? And that's why we use it, because we do a lot of what you're asking about here. For example, if you go to mgyb.co/s, which is the link shortener, you'll see what I'm talking about, okay? And that was not what I wanted to do. Right there. mgyb.co/s is the link shortener. So you can sign up, you can have a free account, or you can pay for a paid account, which is very, very inexpensive and gives you some additional functionality. But that's part of the reason when we deliver like an SEO Shield, for example, all of the links that were included in the order originally, like your syndication network profiles, then all of the files and folders that are created throughout the building of the drive stack, all of those links also get shortened. And if you take a look at, like, for example, the links sheet that comes with an SEO Shield order, you'll see on the Google sheet, when I say sheet, that's what I mean. You'll see on there will be all of the URLs listed for all the files and folders in the drive stack in one column. And then in the column to the right of it, there will be all the short URLs that are mgyb.co shortened URLs. And the reason why we do that is because, you know, with all the link building that gets done to drive stacks and everything else, people will also submit link building, you know, the mgyb.co short URLs as target URLs. And so over time, this has gotten really, really powerful. In fact, there's it's funny, but oftentimes the mgyb.co short URLs will rank in search results as opposed to the unfurled or the destination URLs. So, like, for example, like Google My Maps, the My Map URL, typically I see for a lot of the projects that I have SEO Shields done, when the My Maps is ranking, it's the mgyb.co short URL as opposed to the actual Google URL. Does that make sense? That's showing in the search results. So if you want to use a link shortener, use ours, because that's specifically why we set it up, was for that reason. And there is some benefit to that. Now, remember, there's a little bit of page rank that drops through redirects, right? It's a little bit of loss, page rank loss through every redirect. I don't know what that number is. It's, you know, a small percentage, like 10 to 15% or something like that. And I don't know that that's completely accurate anyways. So there is a little bit of a loss there, but there is some benefit to it as well, because again, our short link URL, and probably all the big ones, Bitly probably has a shit ton of power built to it. But if it arbitrarily converts it to a 302, you're not going to benefit from that. Does that make sense? So there are other options out there. There's ours, then there's other options out there that won't arbitrarily assign a 302 redirect. Okay. That's a good question. Okay, moving on. George, the SEO. Aside from places like Yelp, Mamta, and other directories and press releases, where are some other places we can secure citations, for local SEO clients? Well, you know, there's the normal business directories, but one of the things, and out here, I'll go through a little exercise with you guys. And this works really well for stuff too. Remember, there's a few things that you guys should be doing for citations besides the standard citations, which everybody and their brother is on. You should be looking for niche specific directories. So like industry specific directories. Let me pull this up. Industry directories. And also local directories, right? So what do I mean by that? So for example, if I, you know, tree service stuff is what I do. So if I say tree service business directory, we'll go through here and see. I don't understand what that means. Anyways, I'll look at that later. Okay, so what I would do is just do a search for, you know, your industry business directory, and just start clicking through and see which ones you can get listed on. Some are going to be paid, but many of them will be free, and compile a list. If there are similar or tangent industries that would also be good places to get listed. So for example, tree service business directory, I could get listed on as many of these in here that I could find. Does that make sense? That, you know, again, some are going to be paid, some are going to be free. Just compile a list of industry specific directories. Then, like I said, look for tangent market or industry directories. So for example, I could look for landscaping business directories, right? Those could be some of the other ones that I could get listed on, because tree services, oftentimes landscapers also provide tree services, and oftentimes tree services also provide landscaping services, right? Does that make sense? So that'd be another good one. Something else for in the tree service industry would be like maybe land clearing. Let's do this, right? So just, you guys understand what I'm saying, right? And I don't know, because land clearing isn't probably searched enough on its own for it to have specific directories. Maybe it does. I'd have to do some research, but my point is just go through and try to compile a list of what could be industry related or somewhat related industry specific directories that you could try to or attempt to get listed on. So that's going to help, okay, for topical relevancy. But then for location relevancy or geographic relevancy, then you could look for local business directories. So for example, if I was going to look for, you know, say Fairfax, Virginia, I'm just going to use that, or Richmond, Virginia, which is the capital of Virginia. So let me do that. Let's say Richmond, VA, or Richmond, Virginia business directory. And then I would just go right on through here and just start clicking through and opening up. That's richmond.com, the Chamber of Commerce, obviously, that'd be another good one. And they're all of these different, try to put it back over there. So this is richmond.com. This is the Chamber of Commerce, 804area.com, richmondgov.com. You might even be able to get listed on like the local municipality or local government site. Richmond light pages, like all of these. Does that make sense? You just go through and look for your city business directories. And then you could also even look for not just your city, but your state, right? You could go, like in my case, Virginia business directory, and then go in and start getting listed on those. So there you go. You've got 3 additional options right there. Something else you could look for is local blogs. It doesn't have to just be directories. You could also look out for local blogs, local events would be something else that you might be able to get listed on. So you just got to click through and do a little bit of research. But guys, these types of citations are actually way more powerful than the big ones, like the big national directories, because those are general business directories that cover all types of business categories in all the, you know, all over, right? United States, sometimes even more. So those are, there's a place for those, there's no question. But I found for SEO purposes, you get better results from industry specific and local business directories. And even, you know, state business directories are also helpful. Does that make sense? Anybody want to comment on that?
Got nothing, man.
Okay. Baby's up. Hey guys, should I use a Gsite or buy a domain for local service lead gen? Please explain for short-term and long-term strategy. Okay. You know, Rob, he does everything with just Gsites. He doesn't do any like self-hosted sites at all. And he's, you know, he kills it. I like to still build a brand with a self-hosted site for the most part. If I'm doing a standalone GMB lead gen that isn't going to be like some brand that I plan to expand, then, which I try not to do that anymore at all. If I'm going to start building lead gen assets, I try to always create a brand that I'm going to use across multiple locations. Okay. Because as we've talked about many times before, now you don't have to have a self-hosted site for that though, right? You can create, and here's the thing, BB, whatever route you go, whether you want a self-hosted site, right? So buy a domain for that, or just use Google Sites and Drive Stacks, you know, the SEO Shield essentially without a self-hosted site. You can do it either way. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. I tend to like to have a WordPress site still because it gives me additional functionality. But I know that you can do it with just a Gsite. What my recommendation is that you target just a brand on the primary Gsite. If you want to go that route where you don't have to buy domains, you don't have to have a hosting account, you don't have to set up and maintain or manage WordPress, you can do it with just a Google site. But what I recommend is instead of localizing the Google site for the initial one, you want to set it up as a brand, right? So essentially, let's just call it BB's lead gen, right? We're going to call it that. So your G site and your SEO Shield, I would set it up on to where it's optimized for specifically the brand. That's it, right? So that you order the SEO Power Shield for BB's lead gen, right? So that's the brand. So the Google site would be sites.google.com/views/BB's lead gen. And I wouldn't add or associate it with a particular location at that point. If it's going to be a standalone, then you could do that, right? You'd want to be BB's lead gen for whatever your city you're in, right? So plus city. But if you're going to create a brand out of it, which is what I recommend, and create that you can expand for multiple locations, then I would do it for just the brand at the top level. And then for every location, even if you're starting off with just one location, I would create that as an inner page of the Gsite. So it's optimized, you know, has it like basically a location page, an inner page on the Gsite, as well as an RYS expansion, right? Which you order that in mgyb as well, which would be optimized for that particular location. And then for each subsequent location that you add, it gets another RYS expansion stack, or RYS expansion stack expansion, excuse me. Whatever, you get what I'm saying. I would have an expansion for each individual location, and each location would be optimized for that, you know, whatever your primary keyword is plus the location. That's the way I do it. And the reason why is because you can really build that entity up, that brand name up, so that initially it's all going to be the same. But over time, as you add more, like you continue to link build into it and everything else, it's going to start to gain authority. And each time you want to add another location, expand to a new area, then when you add another RYS expansion, another inner page on the Gsite, it's going to instantly benefit from all of the power that's been accrued into that branded stack and Gsite. Does that make sense? So initially, your workload is going to be the same. In fact, it might even be a little bit higher initially, because instead of optimizing the Drive Stack and the Gsite homepage for a particular location, you optimize it for the brand only, and then you have to have an expansion to target the specific location. So up front, it might be a little bit more work, just a tiny bit, but over time, it's going to pay off. It's going to produce a significant payoff, because each time you add another location, it's going to instantly benefit from the power accrued, and will be a hell of a lot easier to get results from than starting over from scratch each time. Does that make sense? So that's why I prefer to do it that way. I mean, I still like to have a WordPress site, guys, unless it, like I said, it's just a standalone, like a test project or something like that. But if it's something that I plan on expanding, I like to have a WordPress site, but that's just personal preference. Like I said, Rob does everything with just Gsites and just crushes it. So it's up to you how you want to handle that. Okay. What name should we use for local business lead gen? Branded or service name included, or EMD? This limits locality. Wanted to know if that will rank faster. Yeah, I don't recommend. Look, I recommend. Semantic Mastery's been talking about branding for years. We got away from using EMDs, exact match domains, a long time ago. I always go for a brand. There can be a partial keyword in the brand name. A lot of tree contractors do that. Like, you know, a lot of tree contractors will have a city name in their company name, or tree service, obviously, will be it, which is a keyword too. But I prefer to go with branded domains and brand, I don't like keyword stuffing the name. Why? Because think about this, guys. A lot of the times company names are, like, especially for service contractors, is really just a keyword, right? Like, again, like Culpeper tree service. If I was going to run with that as a name, right? I live in Culpeper tree service. That's a keyword. So it's hard to make it a brand, because there's ambiguation right off the bat, because it's technically a keyword, right? It could also be a brand, but you have to overcome the fact that it's a keyword in Google's eyes to be recognized as a brand. Does that make sense? So you're starting at from an entity-based SEO standpoint, you're starting at a disadvantage when you try to go after a generic or keyword-based type entity name. You're better off going with something unique that's branded. It can have a partial match keyword in it. That's okay. But my point is, like, I wouldn't, especially if it's going to be like you plan on expanding outside of a particular location, then I wouldn't want to include a location name, a specific city name in the brand name, because then you'd be pigeonholing yourself or limiting yourself to that one location, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Can you target a keyword that's searched on Google, but there's no meaning of it for humans and they will not understand it? Yeah, sure you can. That's how a lot of people do single variable SEO tests. Again, why would you want to do that? BB, you always ask these theoretical questions, and I have to ask you why. I don't understand why you would want to target a keyword that is searched on Google, but there's no meaning for it to humans. I'm not sure what you would want to do that for, but yeah, sure you can. But no meaning to humans, why? Like, I don't understand what the point of that would be. Anyway, let's say that I want to change a phone number of a business, and there's one place that does not let me do that. Will putting on another place, old number and new number and company name, will Google understand that the other place was a mistake? No. And again, I don't fully understand that question either, but no, because here's the thing. If you've got an old phone number that's outdated and it's published on the web, you know, all those places that it's published, you'd have to update all of them is my point. That's why it's better if you've got, like, for example, with NAP errors, right? If you have data inaccuracies for NAP for a particular business, it's better, it's wiser, it's more effective to go clean up or correct incorrect citation data than it is to start publishing new citations with the correct data, because all you're doing at that point is diluting bad data, right? You get trust me, I've over the years, I've dealt with a lot of clients that had significant NAP issues when they came to me. And I've learned over the years, the best thing to do is not start building new. I mean, starting to build new citations is going to happen naturally anyways from content marketing that we do. But the best way to get results from, you know, maps pack issues or maps ranking issues when there's NAP data issues, inconsistencies, the best thing to do, the most effective thing to do is to update existing citations with correct data, which for that, the best service that I've ever used is Loganix's service. So if you go to semanticmastery.com/Loganix, that's LOGANIX. It's going to take you to their service, and they have a citation cleanup service that I think it's $500. It might even be $600. It's really good though. It's the best one. I've done this a number of times for clients over the years. And their services, I've used a bunch of services to do citation cleanups. And I'm telling you, theirs is by far the most thorough service, period. And I to this day, every time I got a project or new client that has NAP issues, the first thing I include the cost of this service right in the proposal. When I get a new client, and and typically I mark it up, and I also purchase through their account, Loganix account that I set up for them through my own affiliate link as a Loganix affiliate, so that I get a markup plus, I think it's only 10% commission, but I get a 10% commission as well. And then Loganix does all the work, and they've got their citation cleanup service, which is really, really good. Okay. So if they're page loaded a little bit quicker, I'd show you that. Let's go to here, local SEO. And then they have some citation cleanup right here. And it looks like it starts at $497, and it takes about, they say a 6-week campaign. They typically will run it for 8 to 10 weeks though. It's multiple stages, and it works really, really well. Okay. Jose says, hi there. You say you have a client that decides to rebrand and merge multiple websites together or change over to a completely new brand for the domains. I would 301 everything over to the right place, but how would you deal with social profiles and drive stacks? Would you rebuild from scratch? Don't want to waste link juice from the old stacks. Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, with the drive stacks, remember, if you're 301ing the target, the original site URLs to the new one, that you consolidated everything, right? So the other domains that were now all redirected to the new one. So what I'm saying is the drive stacks are going to be targeting, if you had drive stacks built for these other brands or these other domains, right, that were pointing to those domains, and now those domains are 301 to the new money site, then all of that link flow is still going to be going through that redirect to the new money site. The problem that I see with that, though, is, you know, it's not from a link juice point, there's no problem, but from the data point and the information, like the entity information, right? If you've got stuff out there from older brands that have now been consolidated into something new, and you've got those still, remember, on SEO, from an SEO juice, right? So like a link equity standpoint, it's flowing through the 301 redirects to your new domain, your new brand. It's fine. You're still going to benefit from that, but you could ambiguate the entity information of the new entity because all of that is flowing from previously published stuff that had old entity info on it. So again, if you think about it from an SEO juice point, it's fine. It still all flows through. But at the same time, I would worry about having all that other published data about an entity that no longer exists because it's been consolidated in the new one. So that's a really good question. I'm not sure how I would handle that. I understand not wanting to lose all that power, but without going in and editing the file, like the text and stuff like that on the files, essentially, the Gsite and stuff, to mention the entity information like NAP, for example, name, address, phone number of the new entity, then I would be concerned that might ambiguate the data, which in my case, and I've done that in the past, I've just killed the folders, like just set them to, not public, so that the SEO juice will still flow, but they're not, being indexed and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's the way that I've done it in the past, was I've just set the folders to, private, essentially. But gone in, but again, it's either that or kill it altogether. But I understand not wanting to waste the juice. But at the same time, if you want to keep them public, then you'd have to go in and actually edit all. And from what I know, I would want to go in and edit all of the, published data about the old entity and update it with the new. And that would be a shit ton of work. There's no question about that. That's how I would do it. Would I rebuild from scratch? Yeah, I would have a new drive stack built for the new brand, the consolidated brand. Absolutely. But I understand not wanting to waste all the power built to the previous ones. So that's about the only thing I could think of to do with that, would be to, in the past, like I said, I've just set them to not public and kept them, but they weren't, indexable, or killed the folders entirely, which sucks because then you lose all that juice, but it is what it is. Okay. Jay's up. He says, how are you guys managing freelancers, writers, link builders, etc. when you start to grow your team? Are you just using something like Upwork with Teams or something better? Yeah, I mean, my team is only 2 people now. Well, I've got bloggers, but I don't really manage them much. I've got 2 assistants that work for me on, Monday through Friday though. And I just manage everything through Slack. We've got a CRM that we use. Well, a couple CRMs. I've got High Level for agency stuff. And then I use a different CRM for real estate stuff. And then I've got Slack channels that I manage everybody in. You know what? Adam would be the better one to answer this one.
Yeah, I think it's this could be its own like full-on conversation. So I'll try to keep this somewhat short, but I think it depends on what your needs are. Like, don't go looking for a problem to solve before you have one. So if you're feeling the crunch, and it sounds like, Jay, you're maybe you've got a small team and you're growing, if it's not working, then now's a good time. You got the pain point. So I would start simple though. Like for me right now, I use ClickUp, and I work, between full-time, part-time, and contractors. I have like 7 or 8 people from different groups. So that's one. There's a lot of these services like ClickUp, Monday, trying to think of other ones, but those are 2 good examples you can go and check out. And they usually have some sort of free tier, but they can get complicated, and you can spend a lot of time figuring them out. So Trello is definitely a good place where you could get started with the simple, like, maybe you have one list of ideas or things or templates, and then you have one of in progress and one of finished or needs review, something like that, just to get you in the mindset of delegating more. Because as you build up your team, your time should shift towards more effectively delegating and doing a very good job and spending a lot of time on that up front, so that you don't spend as much time doing or as much time fixing because you gave someone shitty instructions. And I say that because I'm, growing pains myself, going from a couple people to more, shrinking, growing, seeing that again and again. So just make sure that you have an actual need for this. Don't do more than what you need, but be aware of what your options are. And stay simple rather than get complicated fast.
That was a good answer. And I like what you prefaced everything with, is don't look for a solution don't try to find a solution for a problem you don't have yet. I've tried Monday and ClickUp and some of those, and I quit because exactly what you said. There's so much stuff that you can do with those, and there's different ways that you can build them and all that. That you can go down a rabbit hole and get lost in just tweaking the platforms. And so, my point in trying to use them was to be more efficient. But then I found that it was taking so much time just learning how to use it and setting it up and all that kind of stuff and working it in, you know, creating workflows and all that, that what's working for me with a very lean team like I have is just something super simple, which is just Slack, and I have calendar notifications, and then we have tasks and stuff that my CRMs will automatically assign to, you know, the appropriate, person for projects and things like that. And so I use just those tools which were things that we were already familiar with. I didn't see the need after trying like Monday and ClickUp. I saw that it just was overkill for my lean operation. So, you know, do what's easy and simple. And, you know, if you're going to be growing a big team, you might need to look into something like that for sure. But just, you know, keep it. I like what Adam said, is that you just be careful, because you could end up, you know, in an effort, in the pursuit of trying to be more efficient, you could kill your productivity. You know? Yeah,
it's taken us a while. Like, I'm glad I went with ClickUp. I used Monday, I switched to ClickUp, and I'm glad I did, but it was a learning curve. You know, there's a lot of time invested in that and figuring out how best to use it, so I can teach the team how best to use it. Now they're helping out too, but, you know, someone's got to figure it out to start with. The thing I will say is invest some time and effort in your processes up front. So if you go to the SEOshield.com, I believe, Bradley, you built that in Process Street, right? The actual checklist?
No, that's in mgyb.co/process. If you go there, that you'll see, it's behind an opt-in wall now, guys. You got to submit your email to get to it. But if it's mgyb.co/process, and that was built in Process Street. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I had that mixed up. And so I would just say, if you're going to spend time somewhere, spend it on the process side. And that doesn't have to be paid service. Could be Google Docs, could be Trello with checklist, or, you know, if you like something sleek like Process Street, something that you can easily duplicate and it's made for this. But yeah, put your time and effort into the processes, and then you can build out the rest of that over time.
And for years, all I did for process docs was Google Docs and Screencast, which I would upload to YouTube, Screencast recorder. And that would, so I, you know, for years, that's all I did. And to this day, when I'm first developing a process, that's where I do it the same way. I record a screencast video, and then I start typing out the steps in a Google Doc. And then once I get the rough draft of the process done, the process documentation done, then I transfer that now to Process Street. And Process Street is paid. I think I only pay like $35 a month or something. So it's worth it to me, but it makes them much more polished, and you can create checklists and things like that from, and embed videos directly into it. And, you know, all kinds of really cool stuff that you can do with Process Street. But still to this day, when I'm first starting to develop a process document, I do it with just Google Docs and a screencast video. And until I get my first, you know, the first draft of it done. And it works really, really well, guys. And for many years, that's all I did was Google Drive and YouTube. Well, you know, screencasts that I would upload to YouTube, and that worked for years. So you don't need to overcomplicate that either.
One thing I will, or two things rather, a little bit of shiny object, but check out Notion as well if you like putting stuff together yourself. That's a great one. It took me a while to realize the power there. I'm using that for marketing calendars and some other stuff too. And then last but not least, if you Google 360, the numbers 360 delegation, there's a great article. I forget who it is or who referred me, but it's profitfactory.com/360 delegation. It's a fantastic article on why you should be delegating and doing the process stuff, and where you should be spending your time. And, you know, kind of directed my attention towards, I really do need to be putting more up time. For example, the vision of a project, you know, this isn't for a tiny little task, but for maybe a project, like, what do I want? You know, what does it look like? Why are we doing this? And sharing a little bit with the team. So it's not just, hey, go build this. And this doesn't have to be some complex process, but sharing with the team so they understand a little bit of the bigger picture, because anyone who's involved in this type of stuff probably would like and benefit from a little bit of it. And then the resources, like, what resources do they need? Do you already have LastPass or whatever? Are you sharing all the passwords? Do you need to record anything? Do they need software? Like, running through this checklist and then going, and what's the definition of done? Do you have screenshots of what a good done project or task is? Do you have a example? Do you have something they can compare it to? Is there a schedule? And anyways, going through this and saying, oh, wow, for myself, it was like, I got to spend more time up front so that I spend less time getting involved in it down the road when it's I just told them to get started and left out 20% of what they needed.
Yeah. And I mean, it sucks because you know, a lot of the times it's so much easier just to do a, you know, complete a task on your own than it is to, because it's like, you know, this is only going to take me 20 minutes. And if I got to create a process, you know, process documentation, it's going to take me 3 hours, you know, if to do this 20-minute task, I'll just do the damn task. But the problem with that is then the next time that task has to be done, guess who does it again? You do. You know what I mean? And so, and I struggle with that all the time because, you know, sometimes some of the processes that I want to go develop are super complex. And I know that it's going to take me days, literally days, to develop that process out. And so I'm like, fuck, it'll only take me 2 hours to do this. I'll just do it myself, you know, because I don't have the time to create this process training right now. But then the next time that situation occurs again, it's me that has to do it again. And so, you know, and I've got to invest the time again. And so it's like, you have to constantly weigh it. Like, should you just go ahead and execute the task and move on to the next thing? Or should you invest the time to develop the process so that, number one, if it's you that has to do it again, you've got, it's done consistent, right? The quality is consistent because you've got a checklist now that you can run down to make sure that you don't miss anything or whatever. But second, and more importantly, you could hand that off to somebody else to where you never have to do it again. And so to me, even the really complex tasks that require sometimes multiple levels of process docs, you know, I try to at least start working on those, like plugging away at them a little bit at a time, where I might, you know, more complex tasks, I might say, okay, look, I'm going to spend 30 minutes a day or an hour a day over the next, you know, 2 weeks developing this process training. That way I don't feel like it has to be done today, but at the same time, I'm making progress on it a little bit at a time, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, very true.
We're almost out of time. Let's run through the last couple. Let's see. Will says, hey, gents, I have a client that wants to run one press release every 3 days. The manufacturing plant is supplying a range of new products, and they want to be number one before any other supplier. I did a test with 4 PRs in 4 weeks, and it worked a treat. He now wants me to push that further and do about 10 PRs in 1 month. These are for different products, and each has a separate landing page. Is there any harm in running this many PRs? No, not at all. I've got a few projects that I typically publish 8 PRs per month on. And then I know Rob has done, he's just spammed the shit out. Like, I say spam, it's not really spam, but he's done a whole bunch of press releases in a week. Like, and I don't know what the number is, but I know he's done like multiple press releases in a week for a particular project, just to test it. And it's always produced good results. So no, more won't hurt you. Okay. Good question, by the way. Gordon says, hey guys, hope everyone is still well and COVID free. I believe it used to be imperative for a local business to have their site ranking on the first page of Google, or at least on the second page, in order to rank in the GMB 3-pack. Is that currently essential, or can their site rank way down in organic search results and you can still get a 3-pack ranking by doing complete on-page GMB listing optimization and by targeting the GMB listing itself with press releases, citations, drive stacks, etc. from mgyb? And if so, can you do it with middle of the road quantity and quality of reviews? Thank you very much as usual for your help. Yeah, no, I know what you mean about there's being a connection between maps ranking and organic ranking, but I could for years, all I did was optimize for maps, and I didn't give a shit at all about organic rankings. I've started to do more on organic side of things now because the maps proximity filter is much tighter now. It's much narrower. So getting a maps listing to rank, you know, outside of its immediate physical location area is more difficult now. So that's why I've started working also on organic rankings again, because but long story short, I know what you mean about the connection between the two, but I've got a ton of GMB assets that the organic rankings are basically non-existent. Like, I just didn't even try ever. And so some of them are ranking in the 3-pack, but I've got, you know, it's page 4 before you find the first organic ranking for that, you know, keyword, for example. So I don't know that the connection is still there. I know that I will, you know, I try to do a balance of the two now for, new projects, but for older projects that all I did was focused on GMB ranking. I've got many examples of that the organic rankings are just real shitty, you know, page 3, page 4, whatever, but it's ranking in the 3-pack, if that makes sense. So I don't think it matters, honestly. I could be wrong. Somebody else might have some. Now, if you get your organic ranking to rank well, will it help to benefit the maps ranking? I think so. But if you're just focusing on maps, I don't think the organic rankings makes much of a difference, at least in my own experience. Now, again, there might be some other data out there that conflicts with that, but for my own experience, it doesn't really matter for maps rankings. If that makes sense. Okay, last question is going to be from Robert, and we got to wrap it up. Robert says, "Thanks for continuing Hump Day Hangout with us all. You're welcome. We enjoy this. If I have a money site, I just acquired a domain with 100 plus links. Most are follow links with high authority and relative anchors. Great. What's the best way to use this newly acquired domain? 301 redirects. Yeah, if it's relevant, you can do that. I don't like to do that a lot, but if it was a domain where it was topically relevant to what you're going to be forwarding it to, or 301 redirecting it to, then that means the inbound link profile from that domain that you purchased is likely relevant also. Double check that. If it's relevant, then yes, do a 301 redirect direct to the money site. If it's not fully relevant, but there's a lot of power built to it, then what I would recommend that you do is 301 redirect that to a buffer page, like an ID page, for example, hosted on an S3 bucket, an Amazon S3 bucket, as opposed instead of direct to the root domain, the money site domain. Does that make sense? If it's fully relevant and it's got a clean link profile with, the inbound link profile is topically relevant, and yes, you can redirect direct to the money site, the root domain. It's fine. But if it's not 100% relevant, but it's got a lot of power and a somewhat clean link profile, but it's just not fully relevant, then I would 301 redirect that to a buffer site. I prefer to use the Amazon S3 hosted ID page for that, but you could do it like a Gsite would be great for that. Pretty much any one of your tier 1 branded entity profiles, you could redirect to that. But the Gsite would be a really good one for that. ID page is one I typically use for that. If that makes sense. Okay, guys. Sorry I couldn't get to all the questions, but most of them did get answers. So thank you guys for being